They say a uniform protects you. They say it earns you respect. But on a humid Tuesday night in Georgia, Captain Marcus Webb learned that some people only see your skin before they see your service. And what happened next would shake the entire nation to its core. Marcus Webb wasn't just any soldier. He was a decorated Army officer with 2 tours in Afghanistan, a Bronze Star pinned to his chest, and a daughter waiting for him at home who called him her hero. That night, he was driving back from base, still in his combat fatigues, when his tire blew out on a dark stretch of road just outside Fort Benning. He pulled over, turned on his hazards, and stepped out to assess the damage. The air was thick and still. Crickets chirped in the distance. He had no idea that in less than 10 minutes, his life would be hanging by a thread. 2 patrol cars rolled up behind him, lights flashing red and blue against the trees. Marcus raised his hands instinctively, a habit born from too many stories he'd heard from friends, from brothers who looked like him. "Evening, officers," he called out, his voice steady and calm. "Just got a flat. I'm active duty Army, stationed at Benning." But the officers didn't ask questions. They didn't ask for ID. One of them, a younger cop with a buzz cut and a twitchy hand on his holster, barked at him to get on the ground. Marcus complied. He always complied. He pressed his cheek against the gravel, hands spread wide, heart pounding in his chest. And then, without warning, without reason, a shot rang out. The bullet tore through his shoulder, spinning him onto his back as pain exploded through his body. He gasped, clutching the wound, blood seeping between his fingers. The younger cop stood frozen, gun still raised, eyes wide with panic. The other officer was already on the radio, voice shaking, trying to spin a story that hadn't even finished writing itself. But here's what they didn't know. Marcus Webb's dashcam was recording everything. Within minutes, the footage was uploaded automatically to a secure server monitored by base security. Within an hour, it was in the hands of Major General Kevin Hartley, the commanding officer of Fort Benning and a man who did not tolerate injustice in any form. Hartley watched the video once, then twice. His jaw tightened, his fists clenched, and then he made a call that would change everything. By dawn, the gates of Fort Benning opened, and a convoy of military vehicles rolled out in perfect formation. Soldiers in full uniform, faces set like stone, marched toward the local police station. News helicopters circled overhead. Reporters scrambled to keep up. The world was watching. And the message was clear: you don't touch one of ours and walk away. General Hartley himself stood at the entrance of the precinct, flanked by MPs and legal officers. He demanded the immediate arrest of the officers involved. He demanded accountability. And he made it clear that the United States Army would not stand by while one of its own was shot down like a criminal for the crime of existing while black. The police chief, a man used to small-town power and unquestioned authority, tried to stall, tried to deflect. But Hartley didn't flinch. "You have 2 choices," he said, his voice cold as winter steel. "You hand over those officers now, or I make sure every news outlet in this country knows you protected the men who shot an American hero." The silence that followed was deafening. And then, slowly, the younger cop was let out in handcuffs, head down, the weight of his actions finally sinking in. But the story doesn't end there. It couldn't. Marcus Webb survived. The bullet had missed his lung by inches, a miracle the doctors couldn't quite explain. He spent weeks in recovery, his daughter by his side, her small hand wrapped around his. She didn't understand all of it, but she knew her daddy was strong. She knew he was a hero. And when Marcus finally returned to base, he was met with something he never expected: a standing ovation. Hundreds of soldiers, from every rank and background, lined the road as his car drove through. They saluted him. They cheered for him. And in that moment, Marcus realized something profound. The uniform didn't protect him that night, but his brothers and sisters in arms sure as hell did. The case became a landmark. The officer who shot Marcus was convicted of assault and stripped of his badge. The department was placed under federal investigation, and new training protocols were implemented across the state, mandatory courses on implicit bias and de-escalation. It wasn't enough to undo the trauma. It never is. But it was a start. And Marcus Webb became a voice for change, speaking at military academies, at town halls, at places where his story could light a fire in the hearts of those ready to fight for something better. He didn't ask to be a symbol, but sometimes the world needs a reminder that justice isn't given. It's demanded. And when the people who swore to serve their country stand together, no force on earth can silence them. Years later, Marcus would stand on a stage in Washington, D.C., his daughter beside him, now older and wearing her own uniform, following in her father's footsteps. He would look out at the crowd and say the words that had carried him through the darkest night of his life. They tried to break me, but they didn't know I was already forged in fire. And the crowd would roar because they understood. They understood that this wasn't just his story. It was theirs. It was ours. A story of resilience, of brotherhood, of a system that tried to fail a hero and a community that refused to let it happen. Because at the end of the day, the uniform may not protect you from hate, but the people who wear it with you, they'll move heaven and earth to make sure you're never alone in the fight.